mics are on, so and it's on. We're on live feed.
Okay, good. Frank, we're not late.
Right.
Just want to make sure everybody knows that. They're just now putting the binders together for it. That's what happens when you go to Italy.
Test.
Chief. Happy birthday, Mike. Happy birthday. Another whole year.
Yes, exactly. 60.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
My council members are shaking hands. I'm Hey, David. I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, 97, healthy. Oh, yeah, my mom's the same way, right? Yeah. Hey, David, how you doing? Never had a chat.
I'm good. How are you? Good. How are you? I tried to convince Julie that after the meeting, welcome back. If we get out of town, manner, you take us. I got an envelope for you.
Can I log for me?
No, I told her that you did that for us.
Noon, it's 6
I
o'clock,
said,
according to my body.
This within her drinks, and she pays me.
What did she say?
She said, go for it.
Oh,
Tip money.
Oh.
Pam said I could just hand it to you.
Oh, she did she?
all right. So wait a minute. It's, wait a minute. Hold on. Rose.
Hey, Joel.
This is Rose Sultana.
I'd like to call the stated session of City Council to order for the sole purpose of presenting the 2025 budget, which I will do now. Let me begin by thanking you, the members of City Council. Together, we're showing other cities how smart local government works. Our administration has been here since 2008, and Easton is definitely a different city, a better city. We are cleaner and safer, but as you will see in this budget presentation, we are a more fiscally managed city as well. Let me thank our incredible city staff at all levels in every department. In a culture that too often rewards endless conflict and drama, our city employees, all of them, carry out the cherished task of keeping our government running smoothly, of ensuring that people we serve have access to the services they rely on. To our city employees, thank you. Thank you also to my wife, Pam. Her support and patience gives me the strength to do this job. As a former member, 6-year member of City Council during the tough times that our city faced back then, she understands the magnitude and stress of the budget season. I would also like to thank the city staff that helped prepare this budget, most notably City Administrator Lou Campos and Finance Director Mark Lisinecki. And lastly, I want to thank the people of Easton, not only for the trust they placed in the elected officials in this chamber, but also for their daily acts of engagement in making our community a better place to live, work, and recreate. With that said, I submit to you the recommended 2025 city budget for your review, modification, and ultimate adoption. The tentative city budget filed with the city clerk in accordance with Article 5, Section C, Paragraph 5.02 of the city charter, which requires the mayor to submit the budget and budget message to city council on or before 90 days before the start of the ensuing fiscal year, which is January 1st. That's why we do it October 1st. Let me say that the October 1st date in the charter was something I opposed as a member of the Charter Commission, because we don't have a lot of the details. As of just this past week, our healthcare costs we got for next year goes up $750,000, which is 2 mills of taxes. It's a lot of money to balance a budget when you almost $1 million that we didn't know we had, or we had to account for. So from my vacation in Italy, that's what I did. And lastly, every budget season brings with it a unique set of challenges and opportunities. This budget cycle is no different. We continue to prioritize funding on our core tenets of public safety, parks and trails, economic development, and rebuilding our city's infrastructure. I reviewed our number one responsibility is the safety of our neighborhoods. Public safety must always take priority. A safe city is a blessing. And let me tell you, I've been in the safe cities that just close by are not as safe as they used to be. And we're very fortunate. And we want to thank both our police and fire department for the work that they've done. Let me make this clear. The city's financial and budgetary challenges are great, and our opportunities for improving how we manage our city funds are many. We will continue to work with the residents in mind and keeping the most services and facilities that were within our budget. This is not a wish list. Unfortunately, we've been able to put some things in the budget that we wanted or the people needed, but this is really more about needs, not wants. Wants are wish lists, and we don't have room for wish lists in this budget. Let me say this as well. East is doing well, very well, financially. As long as we understand that this budget isn't all things to all people. We must provide the services that majority of our residents want and deserve, but within the means our residents can afford. All of our residents, the average property tax in the city of Easton is about $1,200 a year. Now, some of us pay more, all right? But the average is about $1,200 a year. That's a minimal amount of money. We collect about $8.5 million in real estate taxes, which in Local Government 101, it says that your real estate taxes should pay for your fire and police. Our fire and police come over almost $20 million. That's not counting pension contributions. We remain firmly committed to an aggressive approach towards economic development, and that has been our savior the last 20 years. That building going up you see there has been, it's going to give us more people. Yes, we are now standing at 31,000 population, up from what was 24,000, down from what was 35. We'll never get to 35,000 population. We don't allow, for example, the houses that I remember on Canal Street, they're not allowed to be built there anymore because of the steep slope. Houses that were, the density that the city had is nothing like it used to be. As the reports also indicate, the complete rebuilding of the city's fund balance is one of the most significant successes of our recovery, and there's a correlation between the municipality's level of balance, fund balance, and its financial management. Standard & Poor's has seen that, and they've kept us at an A rating and moved us from, it's now stable, but they increased our rating to stable outlook. And they did that and in their report, it says financial management is strong, and that's what we really appreciate. Now, when we took office in 2008, we faced the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, 2008-9. You may remember it. The city was offered $1 million a year to lease the water plant facilities to Easton Suburban Water Authority, which is really Easton Water Authority. All right? It's an authority of the city. The mayor appoints all 9 members of the board, just like the sewer authority, just like the zoning board, just like with the approval of council. Today we know that this lease is a lot more valuable than what it was. The city jumped at the $1 million a year. Wow, $1 million. So they took it in 2006 or 2007, whatever it was. But they did it without an appraisal. We know that the appraisal value of that lease is about $5 million a year. Or let me put it in more simple terms. The city of Easton's investment in the founding and building of the water plant and water facilities with the extension out to the suburbs is really saving all of our non-city residents a lot of money. We are below average monthly water rates. We are, for example, the suburban water rate now charges $6.22 per 1,000 gallons compared to South Whitehall Township, which charges $7.44. Plus, there's a $10 a month service charge, and in Easton, it's only $8. Or the Pennsylvania Water Company, which is just north of Palmer, in northern Palmer Township, is $16.08 a quarter per $1,000, plus a $17.50 admin fee. Aqua Water, which is another private firm, is $13, double what the Easton Suburban. So we are keeping their rates lower than the average rate because of the investment that our predecessors made into a water facility. You will not cite another water facility because no one's going to build a $200 million water facility. And that's basically what it is. So we've made the lease with Suburban Water very important. We thought we'd get it done by the end of this year. It's going to go into next year. However, we are negotiating very diligently back and forth. We're getting correspondence. And we hired a firm out of Harrisburg, as you all know. In executive session, we showed you who they were. He came in. Adi came in and made his presentation and gave you all this information. For example, Reading, which I realize is a larger facility. Reading gets $10 million a year in their lease, not one. Allow me to put it in simple terms. The city of Easton is making it less expensive to live in our suburban townships. The budget continues to support the work we started 17 years ago to improve the local and grow the local economy, increase the population, draw visitors from around the region, and maintain taxpayer-owned assets. I'm looking forward to working with the City Council over the next 3 years, as city and staff, residents, and business owners, and all of our residents as we continue to build Easton as a great place to live, work, and recreate. Nothing makes me more proud than to come downtown on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or even a Sunday now and see people walking around. People are here, and they're coming here, some of them just to walk our streets because it's safe and it's enjoyable. It's like a European city. But they also come down to eat our food, and our restaurants are all doing well. Just go to any one of them and you'll see that they're full. So anyway, with the city's fund balance in the red in 2008, we were placed in a high-risk category for fiscal stress and placed in the state's early intervention program, the preliminary stage to Bankruptcy Act 47. Since 2008, we've ended our budget year with the annual budget surplus, and the accumulation of these surpluses increased the city's fund balance to roughly 10% or better than 10%, which you set in the ordinance. You said that our fund balance had to be 10%. It's over $5 million. We have roughly a $34 million budget, so we're over the 10% threshold. To safeguard this surplus, the administration is recommending to council that you adopted several policies that protects the money from being used for wish list, and that is the 10% and all the other funds that you have, that you set in that ordinance that you ordained to be the law of the land. Because far too often, a member of city council or the administration, like I want to build a community center in West Ward, it would be very easy for me. I have enough money in the fund balance, but to deplete the fund balance for one project, no. And some of the councilmen have proposed other ideas, but to use the fund balance wouldn't work. So I'm going to go out and raise half of what it costs to build that community center. To go from a negative fund balance to a current surplus fund of more than $5 million is a tremendous accomplishment, and the credit goes to hardworking staff and diligence of members of the city council who put the minimum on these funds in an ordinance. The one area that plays a significant role in next year's budget is the pension fund. And just to give you an idea of where we were in 2008, and thanks to Morgan Stanley and Mike Lois, by the way, it's Mike's birthday, so happy birthday to Mike. We're very pleased with Morgan Stanley's investment policies, but that still requires us to put money in the budget. So you can see from 2008 to today how much extra money was put in of taxpayers' money to pay for legacy costs. Our pension plans are doing well, but unfortunately not well enough. In 1984, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania enacted Act 205, which was pension reform, supposedly, which mandated actuarial funding standards, including minimum municipal wage and all those municipal obligations that you have to put in, which we were able to lower by $1.5 million this year. But our pension investments fall within the state mandates, and we recommended it be restored. Right now, I am recommending, and the administration is recommending, that we eliminate the commuter tax. The non-resident commuter tax that 9,000 people who don't live in the city of Easton pay that extra 1.95, their rate is 1.95%, just like our residents. And that money does not affect, that $2.4 million does not affect this budget because it can only be used for pensions. But it makes it look like we have $2.4 million more revenue. But the expense to the pension is that $2.4 million goes directly into the pension fund. So that really plays a significant role. It's one of the things we're recommending today is that we eliminate. Now, hopefully it's forever because it does stifle economic development. I mean, try to tell the county who works in Northampton and Easton, but may work in the social service department out in Bethlehem Township, there's a 1% or a 9.95% difference between the two people. Or the school district, it costs you a 1% more to teach in Cheston, Paxenosa, and March than it does to teach in Palmer or Forks. So I'm really happy to eliminate that. And when we're going around trying to attract jobs to the city and they find out they have to pay 1.95% more, it's a hurdle that we have to get around. So to go from the negative to the surplus is really a tremendous accomplishment. And the one area that really significantly attracts our budget is that pension and that non-resident revenue. It's not there, but it doesn't matter. It is solely used for pension funds. So in 1984, they allowed that, and I was here as mayor, and I remember instituting the tax, and I can remember going to the courthouse for one of the city lawsuits back then, and a judge said to me, "So what are you here to collect a tax?" I mean, it wasn't not well received at the courthouse, I can tell you. Easton's aggregate pension plan has, in most recent memory, an actuarial distress score of 2, which translates to a funding ratio of 50 to 69% of our police and fire funds, the only two funds that are managed by the city. And the aggregated fund has the 97% of PELRAS, or PMRS rather, that is in our budget. The non-uniformed employees have a 97% funded. I was appointed by the governor and served on that PMRS board for 6 years, and I was very excited to bring that into we crossed the $1 billion threshold as investments. So we kept the delegation of taxing powers and restrictions and detailed the Local Enabling Act 301.1, which allows third-class cities to create this fund, this tax. And we created it, didn't want to, but we had to, in order to help our pension plans. Now, our pension plans are not fully funded, or nowhere near fully funded, but they're over the 70%, and that's what is triggering this. By law, we cannot have, at this moment in time, we cannot have a non-resident community tax. All right, so it's being eliminated by law, not just because we want to. I mean, I would love to keep funding the pension plans for another 10 years so they're fully funded, but we're not allowed to do that. Due to the aggregate pension plan's performance for the last several years, Easton's actuarial distress score as of 2023 moved from a 2 to a 1, or from a moderately to a minimally distressed pension plan. At the minimally distressed level, Easton is no longer eligible for discretionary remedies such as the municipal taxing authority known as the non-resident commuter tax. Easton's pensions are at a better distress level, which suggests that they are doing what we needed to do to improve things. And one of the first things we did, we instituted a policy on the aggregated pension board that every 5 to 7 years we would review who we had as our pension advisors. And it was about 5 years ago, Mike? About 5 years ago, we reviewed it and we secured and named Morgan Stanley with Mike Lovis as the principal, and they're locally right down here on Larry Holmes Drive. We really appreciate the level of information they give us and the opportunity to really invest the money well. Some of you are on that board. As stated, this tax allowed by Act 205 mandated all funds were go into the pension, and its removal is basically giving all those 9,000 people a 1% raise. So a 4% raise is really 5%. Today we are in the midst of the new chapter in the city's history. We are making our mark once again, just like we did during the colonial period when Easton was a powerhouse. We are in a stronger position than we've been in decades. I always laugh at people who want to oppose growth, and they want to oppose the building like the marquee that's going up there. But the people back in the early 20th century didn't oppose the Hotel Easton or the Alpha building. They looked at it, wow, look what's coming to Easton. We need to change our perception of what's going on in Easton and realize that the growth in the earned income tax is what has saved the city. If there was no growth in the earned income tax, we would be constantly adding more money to property owners. You are aware of the problems that have built up in the city's pension over the years, and we can all talk about legacy costs, but we put a lot of money in pensions. We're going to put more in. We should feel good about our progress, but the worst thing we could do is become complacent. If my time in office has had one unifying, overreaching goal, it's been this: strengthen our internal financial controls. We need to do our finances as best we can. we need to understand that we're middle class when it comes to the city. We're not wealthy. But the money we have, if it's managed well, can provide for the services our residents want. Our pledge to build in everyone's Easton means that we are constantly improving our government to address residents' needs more boldly and effectively than ever before. We seek to maintain the city's strong financial footing while strategically using that growth to reinvest our residents' current and future prosperity. A city our size has a fully professional fire department. Unheard of. For many of the cities in our community have gone to volunteer or something else. As long as I'm mayor, we're going to keep having a professionally paid fire department. I like to know that there's somebody ready to roll. All right, I had a gas explosion behind my house. The house blew up. It's leveled. Those firefighters were there quickly, and that's really important. We've added 11 police officers. I'd like to add 11 more. I just don't have the funding to do that right now. That funding is about $1.5 million to $2 million. We just don't have that. We've stayed true to our vision while achieving two notable milestones. More than $1 billion in economic development, which increased our population and increased our earned income tax. And we increased our population, which spreads the cost of local government over a larger group of people. As the county seat, we have a lot of tax-free properties, whether it be churches, colleges, counties. We have over 40% tax-free. So when you look at our budget of $34 million and you see only $8 million comes from property taxes, you wonder why. And that's why, because we're a county seat. So that's why we're supporting State Representative Bob Freeman's bill that would give county seats in any community that has hospitals or colleges that have over 30%, give them additional state aid. So we're supporting that bill. Now I'm going to say it loud and proud. There's no new taxes in this budget. So you don't have to worry about that. I mean, it's going to be 18 years without a property tax increase. And somebody says to me, well, you should put it up a little bit every year. Well, the problem is that's what they always did in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. So we have a 24.95 mills when everybody else says, oh, we have 8 mills of taxes, Well, it's hard to fight that. It's hard for people to move into the nicer communities and pay the taxes when you know that out in the suburbs they're going to pay less than that. The only difference is, I will say this, as a person who developed in Palmer Township and Forks Township, remember when you build out there or buy a house out there, your 50% assessment is based on what the actual cost of that building is. There's no unifying factor there. So in Easton, your house is assessed at, let's say, $65,000. You're assessed at maybe 60% of that, not 50%, not 100% of the 50%. So what happens is a house in Easton, you may pay $6,000 in taxes, but if that same house was in a other municipality, even at 6 mills, you'd pay 9 or 10. So they have to realize that, and people don't. They just see the 24.95% that is done. Just remember, of that 24.95%, I always laugh at people. They just don't know local government. They say, oh, well, you can't raise taxes. Yes, we can. Our general fund allocation is only 13 mills, 13.9, I think. Yeah, 13.9 mills. So we can go to 25 mills. As a distressed city, we can actually go to 30 mills. But the fact of the matter is we can raise property taxes, but we don't want to. And I don't want to. Why? Somebody says, oh, you just want a record of having no tax. No. The taxes were one of the reasons why people didn't move to Easton. So if you hold them level for a long time like we did for 18 years, the other communities start to catch up. And pretty soon you're no longer, you may have the highest millage rate, but you won't have the highest taxes. And you don't have in the other townships a fully paid professional fire department and a fully paid professional police department. All right, you don't have the services you have in the city. So I'm going to say it loud and proud. The other thing that you're going to see, that you're going to get a copy of, is Chapter 285 of the city ordinances, which spells out all of our fees. The problem with the fees is once they get in that Chapter 285, nobody looks at them again. So I'm to blame. In 1987, I created the on-street parking permit for $100 a year, which was a lot of money back then, and we did it because people wouldn't move. They weren't moving downtown because they had to pay for parking. And I don't blame them. So we said, okay, for $100 a year, you could buy a permit and park on the street for free. It's never increased. From 1987 to 2024, that $100 we charge, if we went by inflationary standards, would be $277 today. We're not proposing $277. We're proposing that it be increased to $125. And that's probably the major. The other things have to do with what it costs for our legal fees, what it costs for people to go out and do inspections. Those types of things you'll see have been raised or being recommended to be raised. In summary, our city's financial standing is much improved over it was in 2008. My proposed budget is proof of this. For too many reasons and for too many years, we did not make the efforts necessary to control our finances. In the past decade, we've made huge progress towards that end, but the level of effort and the progress that results must continue to achieve a level of financial strength in Easton. You can't come here and just think you're going to I would love to pave every street, fix every pothole. I would love to have 100 police officers and 90 firefighters and reduce that overtime cost. It's not going to happen. This is a budget of priorities, not a budget of wishes. I wish we could do that. I wish we could build a community center. I wish we could level a block and create baseball fields and football fields and soccer fields and basketball courts for kids. We can't do that. So we rely on our suburban municipalities to do that, where they when you go in and say, oh, we have 300 acres, okay, we want 100 acres for a park. I mean, they tell you right out. I built more golf courses and baseball fields in Forks Township than any other developer. I know what they do and how they do that. We don't have the room. We are a density. We're an urban center. We're a core community that has people and buildings on every location. I mean, we're trying to locate a community center in the West Ward. Do you know how hard that is? It's very difficult. We don't have the space. There's no place in the West Ward that has 10 acres, let alone 100. As your mayor, every year I work hard to ensure that our Easton budget reflects our values, invests in a more prosperous and secure future, and delivers on the critical service that keep our city running effectively. I am especially proud of all that has been accomplished in the budgets of our administration. We propelled our economy forward out of a pandemic into a period of historic growth by investing in our small and local business while putting back money in our families' pockets. There are some people who can afford a 20% increase in their taxes, but there's others who can't. And if you sit in my office and think about the people, you got to think about the low income who can't pay and who would lose their home if they couldn't pay their taxes. Though the pandemic upended our daily life and changed the way many organizations operate, I am proud to lead a city that kept prioritizing the needs of the community under extraordinary circumstances, innovating new methods and new services and leading the ways no one else expected. We came out of the pandemic stronger than we went into it. And thanks to the federal government with ARPA and CARES and all those other acts that really help businesses. We opened our small businesses before many other cities because I didn't believe in closing them. Among the host of other actions, we created a new tradition for Easton, the Winter Market. The Winter Market attracts people from all over the country, not just the region. And I'll say this. I invited Hallmark to come to this Winter Festival this year, figuring, what else, what better small town feeling could you get than for the lighting of our peace candle the Saturday after Thanksgiving? They wrote back to me, the CEO of Crayola, and unfortunately, they're not going to be able to do it this year, but he said they'll start planning for it for next year to try to bring one of their actor or actresses in their Hallmark series to Easton to witness this, and we'll wine and dine him and hopefully, get a movie out of it. I mean, Bethlehem can say they got a movie out of it, but it wasn't filmed in Bethlehem, it was filmed in Canada. I guess there's a Bethlehem in Canada, I don't know. I don't think so. It's an exciting time to be living in our city of Easton. The revitalization of the downtown and our neighborhoods is underway. The opening of in 2025 of the Marquee and the Great Square Hotel and the Confluence will be very, very effective. It'll bring money into your coffers. I won't be here in 4 years, but I'll be here for the next 3. And we talk about how we're going to balance the budget in the next 3 years when we don't have new development coming on. See, the townships what they forget is that local government 101 still gets most of their money from the residents and the property. Well, I would like to see what happens to their millage rates when Forks Township is built out and Palmer Township and has no more growth. Right now, you keep reading, I just read an article where they expect 3,250 more homes in in Forks Township. They could build 3,250 as the land that they have according to their local zoning code. Well, imagine once that's all built out, and the only way you get new money is by increasing the taxes already on the people who live there. And that's what happens in Easton. We didn't grow. We only merged with the borough of South Easton, which is today's South Side, but we didn't merge with Wilson and West Easton and Palmer and Forks like Allentown did and Bethlehem did. We didn't do it. For a lot of reasons I will talk about it some other time. But despite these national headwinds, the Easton economy has recovered from the ravages of a pandemic-induced recession from the spring of 2020 when our unemployment rate was 25%. Okay, we all remember that. We have now declined to a rate of 4.1% as of today. This is the lowest rate on record since the late 1990s. The real estate market is out of control in this country and in this city where we all want to live. I have a daughter who wants to buy a house. It's impossible. And there's always at least 15 people in line waiting to buy the same house. So allow me to highlight the budget. Total elimination of the non-resident earned income tax. This reduces the general fund revenues by more than $2.4 million, but it all went to the city-managed pension fund, so it has no material impact on the budget. This reduces the total budget, but it has a reserve budget of almost $5 million. Growth in the earned income tax, the residential earned income tax, attributed directly to our economic development program, John Kingsley, thank you, is really important. We will get more money eventually from earned income tax than we will from property tax. And people, I won't say they don't mind paying it because nobody likes to pay taxes, but they don't see it. It comes right out of their paycheck, so they don't really see it, they don't feel it, they know what their take-home pay is. Our growth in revenues annually is definitely closing the gap that normally existed for the last 50 years. We normally start our budget with a $2 million gap. What is that? Salaries, utilities, health care, inflation, all those inflationary items. But our improvement in the city's managed pension plan, our pension plan is now up to $90 million. And please don't even talk about what one council wanted to do was borrow the money from that pension fund. No, we don't, that pension investment is invested and it's in good hands of Mike Globus, and we want to keep it that way. We want it to grow. We don't want it to decline. We also have the budget includes the delivery of 2025 of 2 new fire apparatus, 1 a new pumper and 1 a new tiller ladder truck, with the total investment in our fire department of $3 million. Plus, the budget also includes money to do the evaluation of the city's fire facilities, which are all old. Fire Central is the newest, and that was built in the late 70s by Mayor Ashton. So it needs to be upgraded, needs to be improved, and so do the outstations. Southside Fire was built in the 1700s when they still had horse-drawn carriage pumpers. Minor changes are included in Chapter 285, which I'd like you all to look at because some of you may agree, some of you won't. One of the changes is a $2 per month fee on water and sewer billing to cover the administrative costs. Again, inflationary city employment goes up, the employee salaries, postage is going up, paper is going up, everything's going up. And if you want to save the money, you can always pay online, which we're trying to get people to do. In conclusion, the 2025 budget represents a future opportunity for Easton to manage itself with continued fiscal discipline. Very important. And focus spending on initiatives that will improve our quality of life and help attract investment and increase economic development. I remember when I took office in 2008, I had no clue that the city had become so crime-ridden. And the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings were all here. And I met with the Chief Palmer at the time, and he said, Chief, and I had Larry as a student. I says, what do we need to do to control the crime? He says, I need at least 10 more police officers. So I gave him 11. That was a big impact on the budget. It was $1.5 million, but it was needed. And that's why we want to continue to do that. So you do the priorities. But a safe city is the most important. To know that you have a fire and police station, police officers are going to roll to the scene is really important for our residents. In spite of our prosperity and continuing investment in our city, the city faces unusual and challenging times. I remember the Beatles, The Long and Winding Road. And I remember as a school teacher playing that song. It was a basis for when President Nixon was getting ready to resign. And I did a slide presentation on that. And the theme was Long and Winding Road. And that's basically what Easton has. It has a very long road and it's not straight. So you need to look at it. So in spite of our prosperity, we have unusual and challenging times. In 2008 and 2009, we faced the greatest recession since the Great Depression. And since then, our community has weathered a global economic pandemic, an economic recession, and sweeping changes to our daily life. 2025 budget continues to provide all the basic services of a full-service city while allowing for some enhancements such as technology, water, solid waste, public safety, and park. Let me just say this. You got to think outside the box. And leasing the water plant to the Eastern Sewer Water Authority is our best bet. It's what we recommend. We don't recommend selling it to the private sector. However, it's a $200 million asset. And that $200 million would go a long way invested in with Mike Glovis and get that investment every year and pay down some of our taxes and pay down some of our, and do some of the capital needs. For example, some of our capital needs, Heil Pool. Wilson just closed Muser Pool because they couldn't spend $2 million on it. We had about a $2.5 to $3 million improvement in Heil Pool because all the return piping has to be replaced and all the I can't think of what it is, where the water goes into the pool.
Return. The return.
Well, the return, but the basket where it collects all the dirt.
Filter?
Yeah, it goes in there, and I lost it for a reason. It's just we want to make those improvements. We've been improving all the parks. For example, Hackett Park has a brand new ball field, all new soil, all new dirt. Infield is great. I mean, it costs over $30,000, but it was worth it because our kids deserve to play on the same types of fields that I played on when I was a kid. Somebody says, "What do you want your legacy to be?" I don't want a legacy. I don't want my name on anything. All I want is for kids to be proud of where they grew up. That's all. I mean, I had a great childhood. If they could have the same childhood as me, I'll be more than happy. So we paid, and Mark can go over some of these, and you'll have this in your packet when you get it. Right today, you're going to get my speech and the budget, and that's it. We'll have the full packet for you at Wednesday's meeting. But as shown on our track record, we are delivering and will continue to deliver on all of our commitments, maintaining strict fiscal restraint, meeting our debt and prevention obligations, and preparing for the future. Our pension debt is something our employees deserve. I don't begrudge them a pension. So I want to make that loud and proud that we don't begrudge them. We want them to have they gave a full career to the city, whether it be fire or police or non-uniform. But we also know that we got to live within our means. And that's the hardest part. I mean, a lot of our directors right now, I will tell you, our directors deserve a raise. They work hard. Some of them were on over the weekend, were here while I was in Italy talking to them on the phone, addressing some of the needs, like the $750,000 increase in health care costs. And they deserve good health care. They deserve good benefits. But that doesn't mean they can break the bank. And so we want to make sure that we do it right. For the record, $8 million Easton pays to the MMO. It's almost received in our property taxes. We receive a little over, about almost 8.4 million, I think, in property taxes. And we're putting $8 million towards our pension. That's why the State Representative Bob Freeman's bill is so important to us, because we do have non-tax. Now, I got to say, even though Lafayette College doesn't have to pay taxes on their off-campus housing, they do. They do. They're still the highest taxpayer in Easton. They do. All right? They do that voluntarily. I wish more of our nonprofits would do that, but our nonprofit downtown churches are hurting. So you can't go to them for money, and they provide great services to the community, mostly to our low income. So not many other cities in the United States can claim the degree of success we've had. We're very fortunate. Our government belongs to the people and is run and operated by 24/7, 365 days a year by our people, our 275 employees. Our employees are the most precious resource, and we continue to focus on supporting all of our employees in this budget. No layoffs or eliminations are planned in this budget. As a matter of fact, we are creating one new position. That position is a sustainable coordinator. We have till 2035 to meet our climate action plan record of reducing our greenhouse emissions, and we need somebody on staff that's going to direct the directors to make sure that they're following that plan. There's no greater challenge to local governments, both in the short term and the long term, than financial management. Mitigating homelessness has been a big issue for us. We're getting more and more homelessness. And although we have Safe Harbor and Third Street Alliance, we are getting them we're very fortunate. I think East is well on the map that we don't take illegals and we don't want any homelessness if we don't have them. But we have the services so they come here. Even a homeless person knows that they can get 3 meals a day at Safe Harbor, because Safe Harbor doesn't care how many they serve, but they only have 25 beds. So they can only take 25 people off the street. We need to do something about the homelessness. It's a national problem, and it's the #1 challenge that we see. We also have to do a better job of parking. We know that. You heard, some of you attended the Parking Summit, which had a lot of great ideas. We're fleshing them out and vetting them right now, and we'll make recommendations to City Council. We're trying to work with the State Theater. Last year we had the State Theater, a record day of attendance at Crayola and the Winter Market. And State Theater had a matinee and an evening show that was only 1.5 hours apart. So the 4th Street garage was backed up. So we're looking at right turn only coming out of the garage so that you don't have to wait for traffic to stop both ways. And we're looking at, if they tell us when they have a sold out show, like the Beach Boys a couple weeks ago, we will put a person on there overtime and collect the money ahead of time. So at the end of when everybody's leaving, you have 1,500 people leaving, the gate will be open and you just keep going. Not everyone is computer literate. And I look at my father, who's 97 years old. If he went out of that garage, he would get to that kiosk. He'd probably be there 5, 7, 10 minutes until he figured out how to use it. He would figure it out, but it would take him time. Whereas somebody else might only take 2 minutes and to keep the line going. What happens is that person who doesn't know how to use it is there for 5 or 10 minutes, and the line just backs up. So we can do a better job of that, and we will do that. There's no greater challenge than homelessness, but I also believe that I did Safe Harbor when I was here in the 80s, and the same night we gave the $1 million loan to the State Theater, we also gave a lease-free lease to our Robb Supply Building where Safe Harbor is now. We gave it them. And I actually had a cousin who was there, who was one of the first residents. I think people are homeless for other reasons, not just because they don't want to work. I had a cousin who stayed there who was a crane operator at Bethlehem Steel, made much more money than I made as a school teacher, and he lost his job when Bethlehem Steel closed and didn't get a job because nobody was going to pay him as much as he was making as a crane operator. And he became homeless, and he stayed there. So I just want you to know that the administration is here. We'll be working with you for the next 2 months. You have until December 15th to adopt this budget with any changes you want to make. The schedule will come out tomorrow as to when it'll be. It'll take the place of our Tuesday workshops, and we'll put together a budget, which department's going to go which. Usually we do public safety first, administration, and public works we do in one night because it's so big. Any other questions? That's the extent of the agenda, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion is second, Brown and Pinnabone. All those in favor say, oh, I'm sorry, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Ms. Sultana? Mrs. Rose? Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Pinnabone?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Thank you very much. We can give you the budget and chapter 385.